Good day, Zimbabweans and the entire world. Today I want to look at the processes which unfolded or which are still unfolding during this process of the illegal constitutional amendments which is taking place in our country, which started in 2024. As we all recall, it was during the ZANU-PF conference in Bulawayo when a proposal to amend the constitution came from the floor. That's unlike ZANU-PF. The constitution of ZANU-PF or the processes of ZANU-PF don't allow for that, because all the structures are supposed to be involved in coming up with the resolutions, which are then tabled before the Congress as reports and recommendations from provinces, and then people will take it up from there. So each province stands up with these recommendations after consulting the cell, the branch, the DCC, and then that's what should happen. But that did not happen. A resolution just came from the floor. And that prompted Patrick Chinamasa to consult with Emmerson Mnangagwa. And Chinamasa boldly stood before the conference delegates and advised them that this resolution which you seek to amend the constitution has got challenges. The first challenge is that it will require 2 referenda. One to extend the term of office, and then the other one to allow the incumbent to benefit from that extension. And he further told the delegates that he had also gone not once, not twice, but thrice to Emmerson Mnangagwa, seeking his viewpoint. And Mnangagwa said he was a constitutionalist. He was not going to seek a term extension. But because we no longer have the party ZANU-PF that we know, the party that liberated us from colonialism, it has now been overrun by, for ED, it's now for ED party, a parallel structure which Emmerson Mnangagwa instituted. Now, for ED party and its leadership, they take Zimbabweans for granted. They think we are all Mbava for ED, we are all Maure for ED, we are all Varoi for ED, you name it. That's what they now think Zimbabweans are. But no, we are not. And we will not allow to be taken for granted or to be taken for a ride. That's why we are saying no to the unconstitutional amendments. After that, what happens? We thought, Mnangagwa, the gentleman, is stated this point in full view of the entire world and in full view of his own party delegates. But little did we know that Koronyera iri rakati kutamba tsoro dzaro dzarakatamba Mugabe kuti inini handiri zveupresident, vanhu vari kundinyepera, ndozvakataura achibvunzwa naMugabe kunzi uri kuhuda here, handiti aiwa handisiri, ini handihudi, vanhu vari kundinyepera, ndozvakataura naMugabe. So he repeated that. Now we have a conference again last year in 2025, where The same resolution was tabled, and it went through, and it came out and publicized as the people have decided, the people have agreed, you know, to the extent that this other Mangwana guy says if Mnangagwa doesn't want, we're going to force him, you know, to be in power until whenever we want. You know, that's, you know, unheard of, you know, in a proper country. How can an ordinary person or a party member, you know, say he's going to force the president to do that? That is treason. You know, he should be behind bars, being charged for treason. You know, if any other person had done that, we've got people who have just demonstrated, who are rotting in jail now, you know, and no one is saying anything about it. But here is a person who says he's going to force Mnangagwa, you know, and you think he is just saying that, oh, he's got the blessings of Mnangagwa to say that. So then what is more interesting is the person who was tabling these recommendations or these resolutions, to start with the Politburo, the Central Committee, the conferences, back to the Politburo, back to the Central Committee, you know, is none other than Jacob Mdenda. The same person who is going to preside over the same amendments when they get to Parliament. Now they're already in Parliament because they've been gazetted by the same guy. Remember, you know, this fellow Jacob Mdenda. He is the Secretary General of the ruling party. He is the Speaker of Parliament. So he has got 2 full-time jobs. You know, what on earth is that? You know, we all know that when, what's his name, Jacob, Mpofu, Obed Mpofu, was Secretary General, he was only employed full-time by the party. But now we have a Speaker of Parliament who is employed full-time by ZANU-PF, who has been tabling, you know, agenda on including the constitutional amendments at every stage of the party process. Now he has gazetted the amendments. He has called for consultations and views from the public, the same guy, and he's going to preside over it and, you know, preside over the voting of it. And, you know, we say there is a genuine process going on. No, Zimbabweans cannot be fooled. As you see, the feature, you know, they will only do feature. Etwa nana Zex, nana Banyangu, you know, Kunjanjuku. And they were targeting certain people. Kwete van vakashinura, vakaita sesu, no. And nerushunji rweZimbabwe vakashinura, no. We are saying no to the amendment. And we are saying no to an amendment which is centered on Mnangagwa and his Secretary General Jacob Mdenda. Also, mind you, Mnangagwa was presiding over the Politburo. He was the chairman of the Politburo. He's the chairman of the Central Committee. You know, he's also presiding over conferences. You know, he's one who opens and closes conferences of and congresses of ZANU-PF. So the same 2 people who are now saying they are the people, they are Zimbabweans. They are trying to play with our minds because they take us for ED Mbava, for ED Mawindi, for ED, Makoronyera. We are not. And the process has no legitimacy at all. Even those who are trying to, pamper it and trying to, panel beat it so that, it becomes something of substance. It is not. It is devoid of legitimacy, because you cannot create your own resolutions, turn them into government policy, take them to parliament, yourself, and you say, yeah, the people have spoken. We have not spoken. Our voice is no to the unconstitutional amendments, no to a flawed process. We are not part of it. Even those who contributed to the process, I don't know for what reason really were they involving themselves in such a flawed process, giving the legitimacy to such a criminal process, such an illegal process, and you find yourself here part and parcel of it. I think let us agree that the process in itself is flawed and it's null and void. I thank you.